"Would you like to come out today?" "Oh, yes, please," said Edward. So they lit his fire, made lots of steam, and Edward puffed away.
First AU Fact episode of the new year. Hooray! I don't really have anything else to say here, so let's just get into the trivia. Fact 1. In the summertime, when the weather is fine, tank engines help at the harbor on the branch line. That is, Stafford Harbor. Duck and Percy are usually assigned to work there in the evenings after rush hour, when their branch lines slow down. The harbor may have its own engines, but even they get stressed during the summer months. Well, Salty is at least. Porter is just chill all the time. It was one of these evenings when Duck began to dream about the sea. But that, of course, is another story. Fact 2. Caroline is an old sports car who lives at Elsbridge on Thomas's branch line. Specifically, she is a Vauxhall 30-98, built in 1924. She used to be a racer and was quite good at it. She won a couple championships until she wrecked in 1936. She was repaired, but her team sold it to a private buyer on Sodor. She was passed down through the generations, being used mainly as a family car. After her incident with Stepney, where she actually almost beat him to Farquhar, she realized how much she missed racing. She and her owner set up a vintage car tournament, a set of races open to specifically old cars. The event was very popular and is now an annual affair. The engines don't really understand the appeal, but they are glad that their friend is happy. Fact 3. Chopper and Copter are a set of Class 20s who work the midnight goods services. Chopper was actually one of the Diesels who attempted to catch Oliver, though she didn't do it willingly. In fact, when she actually found him, she let him go scot-free. Needless to say, Oliver thanked her greatly when they met on Sodor. Copter has a less exciting story, as she was bought from BR when her engine gave out in 1976. She was, though, one of the first Class 20s to be withdrawn. The two Diesels usually double-head trains nose to nose, and get along very well. You would have thought they'd known each other for years when they first met. Fact 4. You may have heard of Barry the Rescue Engine. He gets his name from two sources. The fact he rescued other engines from scrap, long story, and the fact he's a designated rescue engine. He shares the latter title with Bell and an Irish engine called Anto, who we'll need to talk about some other time. A rescue engine is an engine designated to pull the cranes when there's an accident, typically being the first on the scene so the line is cleared quickly. Then, an engine from Croman's Gate comes to take broken rolling stock away to be fixed, and to generally clean up. It's an important job, but these three are more than capable for the task. Fact 5. Alexandria is a large GCR-9N tank engine who came to help after Henry almost died. Gordon and James were averse to begin with, but she soon sorted them out. She's used to getting grief for being a tank engine who takes mainline passengers. Proving her capability with her strong work ethic, the Fat Controller kept her on loan after Henry came back, pulling everything from suburban trains to breakdown cranes. Her loan was meant to expire after World War II, but it seemed that her old railway had forgotten about her. They continued to stay on the NWR, even coming with the other engines to London during the 8 Famous Engines tour. She was technically still on loan, and thus her presence wasn't advertised, but she didn't care. Besides, she felt 9 Famous Engines just sounded wrong. After returning to Sodor, they were assigned to pull the Limited, an express service from Knapford to Vicarstown, stopping at limited places along the way. They were honored to be given such a job, but didn't let it go to their smoke box, unlike some tender engines I could mention. Bear would pull the Limited for her while on trial, but instead of kicking up a fuss, she helped to teach him the ropes. That's another story, though. She was finally purchased in 1963, after the NWR-BR split, hence why she wears the railway's number 12 instead of number 8. Although technically the railway's 8th engine, they don't care much for the spotlight. As long as she is treated right, she does her work without fuss. They're kind, but firm, and aren't afraid to speak up or get their buffers dirty when they feel something is wrong. They've got a short temper sometimes, but they try their best to keep cool. Her friends know she always has good intentions anyway. People often underestimate Alexandria being a tank engine, but she always makes them regret doubting her. And now for the questions. Oodleon4210 asks, what's your take on the red engine in the sad story of Henry? The red engine in that story is in fact not Hughes, but another engine called the Dreamer. Hughes just goes by Dreamer for short though. Dreamer is an engine of obscure origins. Nobody really knows where he came from. Presumably he's a contractor's engine who works for a company somewhere around Knapford. He helped build the railway, along with helping to construct the Peel Goddard line. The state which you see him in is not his original condition. It can be assumed that he looks a lot younger than he actually is due to rebuilding. One day, much like he arrived, he suddenly disappeared without a trace. There are rumors that he was sold, but nobody knows. Someone else is here asked, what was Smudge's life like in the MSR and before it? To quote the engine himself, hell! Smudger was a trench locomotive during World War I, and it was awful. Shells and bullets always above you, not knowing if you'd wake up in the morning, and worst of all, dead bodies strewn across the tracks. He sure is lucky to have made it out alive. The MSR was better, as one would expect, but with engines and staff constantly going at him for derailing, he wasn't exactly happy. Oh, and he got turned into a pumping engine. Not fun. Smudger has had a rough life, but you'll be happy to know he's doing better now. Shunter Studios asks, how does Diesel work in your headcanon? Diesel was built at Derby in 1952. Due to his, shall we say, unsatisfactory shunting capabilities, he bounced around yard after yard, at one point ending up at Old Oak Common, Paddington. This is where he met Duck for the first time. They were friends at first, but once Diesel's plans of revolution were revealed, that soon changed. He continued to bounce around BR's network, eventually ending up on Sodor. You all know what happened when he did. Once he returned to BR, he was stationed at Barrow, and has remained there ever since. He's visited the island a few other times though. It was one of these visits that prompted the unraveling of his web of lies, but that's another story. The Suburbaner, sick name, asks, what happened to the visiting Diesels after they were sent away? Bowler has been preserved by a mainland collector, and visits the island on occasion. He's a lot nicer now, and as such the engines have elected to give him a proper name, Andy. As for Spam Cam and Old Stuck-Up, Spam Cam just couldn't give up his old ways, a propulsionist till the end. Old Stuck-Up did eventually change, but he accepted his fate of scrap, and was at peace. Bell asks, how much freedom do the engines in your AU have? Do they have all the freedoms and rights humans do, or is it limited? This is a very interesting question. Given that they are machines, they are mainly treated as such, and technically speaking, there aren't any laws referring to engine rights. That being said, nowadays vehicles are treated much better, most people seeing them as friends rather than pieces of technology. How much freedom a vehicle gets depends on their owner, but most vehicles don't really desire free will like we do. They're a bit like dogs in that respect, which I know is a strange comparison, but hear me out. If they're taken care of, or are hard at work, they're pretty alright. They lead simple lives compared to us, but they're okay with it. I'm still working on that project I talked about in a previous video, and one of the facts is related to it. Try and guess which one. Work is slow, as I have a lot of props to make, but things are turning out nicely. I just thought I'd make this to tide you guys over. I hope you enjoyed it. As for me, this is EdwardsDayOut, signing off.